Hello, good evening. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show here for our regular non-league roundup. I'm Chris Bell, and joining me, as always, is Lewis Sale. How are you, mate? You all right?
Not bad, Chris, yourself?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. A busy couple of weeks. Of course, there was no non-league roundup last week due to us doing the extended one on Friday for deadline day. So we are back. I say it's been a couple of weeks. Quite a lot has happened. Of course, a lot of FA competitions have been well underway in that time since we did the last one, the FA Cup. The
Yep.
FA Trophy gets underway this weekend. The FA Vars has been underway as well for a couple of weeks, I think. And of
Yep.
course, some busy league campaigns to boot. Quite a lot to get through, really.
Quite a lot to get through. Let's hope we're not talking for 3.5 hours like we did the other night, because I think I lost my voice straight after that transfer special. I know you guys carried on for a little bit longer. I don't know how you did it, but yeah, some good stuff happening around West Yorkshire non-league. A couple of good results in the FA Cup, and we're seeing a few teams have a little bit of a good run of form. But then there's also, on the flip side of that, there's a couple of us who are just slipping a little bit as well. So it'd be interesting to chat about their fortunes.
Yeah, I guess the place to start, we'll put it with the highest respect, is the FA Cup, and it was a mixed bag to say the least at the weekend. Good wins in particular for Emily, who I think went through a replay and beat Widnes on Tuesday night. I think it was. Obviously, Avenue went through against Consett, but on the flip side, Ossett out to Marsk United. Brighouse, they were out to Albion Sport, so we've got positives and negatives for our region there. And of course, Guiseley, who went out after a replay, a very depleted Guiseley, has to be said, that went out in a replay. So, yeah, overall, a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and I think we were slightly disappointed a few more teams didn't get through in the previous round as well. But it's good that we still got some representation in that second round qualifying. Obviously, Emily, did it a little bit tougher. Going to Widnes, the artificial surface is, well known at Widnes, with the rugby league team playing on that as well. But then Emily have turned up and comfortably beat Widnes 4-1. By all accounts, Ruben Jerome was their man of the match and kind of stole the show. And that doesn't surprise me from what we've seen him as well, because he looks a very tidy prospect. Maybe not as good as his brother, but he knows where the back of the net is. I mean, like you say, Albion Sports, to be fair, have pulled off a really good result at Brighouse. Probably not many really expected that one, but at the moment, Albion on a really good run of form. And ironically, the two meet, I think, on Wednesday at Horsfall Stadium, 8 o'clock. So that should be a really interesting game. But Albion Sports at the moment are doing really well. And like I said, at the moment, they just seem to not just score one, they're scoring 3, 4, 5, they're scoring plenty of goals, which is really encouraging for Rizwan's team and the guys there. So it's a good win. And Hideaway is a good result as well to get in a tie.
One Robbie Fox.
Yeah, fabulous Mr. Fox, isn't he, at the moment? He's absolutely finding the back of the net, is that kid. Said at the beginning of the season, he's a poacher, he knows where the goal is. He's a nuisance. He's an old school number 9, really, but when I seen him, as a defender, you probably don't really like to play against him, because he will be in your face. He's quite aggressive. He's sometimes can know the dark arts of the side of the number 9 as well. But importantly, he's contributing to the team, both linking up and scoring goals. And some players like that can just go through a rich vein of form. And to be fair to Robbie at the moment, that's what he's going through.
Yeah, very, very much so. Let's talk about Avenue. Brad Park Avenue, your side, of course, and you made that trip up to the northeast to Consett at the weekend. And, I'll be honest, the reflection of Consett for me is thinking back to the pre-season game that Silsden had when they went up there and got comfortably beat. I think 5-0 it was in pre-season for Silsden. For Avenue, though, obviously a few leagues above, you got the job done.
I think that's exactly it, mate. Job done. To be fair, we deserved to win. I thought we were the better team, but I was surprised at how much respect Consett did show us. That's not taking anything away from ourselves, but they did drop off a little bit. They weren't as physical and as aggressive as I thought they might be, because that's probably where they were going to win the battle. We know our weakness, and that is height and set pieces. We are struggling to defend a lot of them. High balls coming in and whipping crosses. That's where we're a little bit weak. And they did have a couple of chances. They even hit the bar in the second half. But I thought we controlled the game, and from our angle as well, it was even more impressive, considering We had no captain of Luca Havern, who was missing out through injury after his head injury against Guiseley. Mitch Lund as well, out injured. Will Longbottom, out injured. Jamie Spencer were on the bench as well. So, there were some real key players missing and the spine of your team. Hopefully it's got some fitness into Jordan Preston as well, who's starting to get back into some kind of match fitness, which is encouraging to see. So when you've got a bit of a scratch squad with, a very thin depth within the ranks, it was even more impressive. And I think the evening was kind of topped off as well by the two academy products of Zach Kersley and Miles Lipistee kind of linking up and scoring that all-important second goal. And the lads are themselves really proud. It could have been a potential banana skin, the FA Cup Classic, but it was definitely one for us to kind of just appreciate and go, fair play, lad, you absolutely deserved that win. And, 2-0 was probably about right on the day.
Yeah. And the next round, Bruce?
Yeah, Blythe away. That's not going to be easy. That's not going to be an easy tie. But in fairness, in recent years, I think we can go back almost, 5 years probably now since we've lost up at Croft Park. So we've got a good record up there. And Blythe typically, they are having a good start to the season compared to recent seasons. But It's a big pitch. They do like to play football. I wouldn't say they're the most physical of teams in that division. So from what we're looking at of what we're as a team and what we're strong at, we can arguably match quite a lot of that up front. It will be interesting to see who they've got available. I know they've got Cedric Main on loan from York. He's arguably probably one of their key players. Is he allowed to play in that fixture? I think if he is, then obviously that is a threat. If he doesn't, it kind of probably changes the way Blythe play a bit. But we've seen Blythe thrash Farsley midweek as well, 4-0, quite comfortably as well, watching the highlights. It'd be a tough test, but it's one at the moment when you're confident, like the way our lads are at the moment, and you're unbeaten in 5 games now. He's got nothing to fear. People are expecting Blythe to win. So it's one I think we can relish and go up there. And even if you get a draw, you bring him back to the Horsefall in the midweek. You don't really fancy travelling from Blythe to Bradford on a Monday night or Tuesday night.
No, that's very, very true. Aside that, sadly, the cup run comes to end is Guiseley, and just one of those, eh? The 0-0 draw, of course, at Nevermore on Saturday, and then the replay on Tuesday. Hugely depleted squad. Discipline and injuries seem to be the key problems for Paul Phillips' side at the moment. I mentioned 2 on Tuesday night.
When rain pours, it just doesn't stop, does it, at the moment for Guiseley? You saw aspects of the kind of way, I saw them for the first time, obviously, when Avenue played there last Monday. And obviously, they were very direct, very physical, aggressive, but, they wanted to win the battles. Ultimately, that's what they were there to do. And that's how they got a point against, ourselves at Avenue, which is probably not matched up to play like that. I think from guys' perspective, they're going to be really disappointed to be at the FA Cup. I think probably their chance was to win at home against Marine. By all accounts, it was quite a drab affair, 0-0. It does what it says on the tin. But I think, like you said, the really concerning thing at the moment is players are playing that maybe not 100% fit. You're not going to get a lot of players 100% fit, but the likes of Gabriel Johnson, it looks like he could be struggling a bit, but he's having to play, and it's not helped by the sendings off. I've seen the highlights, and I know Phillips wasn't too happy with the sending off against Marine, but it's another one that's added to the logbook, and it's really hurting the team at the moment. And when you're on a bit of a run of form and confidence is not as high as it should be, when there's either frustration and not enough players ready to play, or players are, for whatever reason, leaving the club, added on top of that suspension and injuries, and you've got 2 subs on the bench for an FA Cup replay. From the outside looking in, it doesn't look great. And also, looking at comments at the moment on social media, which is what it is, I know I get that, but there seems to be a little bit of disgruntlement there at Nevermore, which I think is interesting to see. And it's almost it's up to Phillips and the team to really pull together and probably use that adversity as a bit of fuel for the next few weeks, because arguably on paper they've got a running where they probably should be getting at least 1 or 2 wins. But if they don't, I think Phillips will be definitely looking over his shoulder.
It's one of those. The discipline is just such a killer, because obviously there was the 2 red cards against Avenue. There was the red card on Tuesday night against Marine, the replay. I'm right in thinking there's been 1 or else 2 red cards already, and we're only 6-ish games, 6-7 games into the season. And Guiseley, this is not a positive in any way, but they're making a mockery of your whole. You can usually get engaged from pre-season because guys who went completely unbeaten in pre-season, and you thought, excellent, if it kind of matches up to that, they're on for a good one, and it just has not started that way. One win so far, and that was against Basford United.
Yeah, and with a great respect to Basford, Kitty's team at the moment at the bottom and struggling a little bit. And even then, it could have been a draw. So, yeah, it completely turns my prediction upside down, which is usually the case, which is fine, used to it. But I think if you're a fan at the moment, you are probably a little bit concerned about what's happening. I think the worry thing is you've got to. It's almost putting a team together. Let's be honest. At the moment, I think they're getting a few back, but then, like I say, Saturday you're missing Ollie Browne, who picked up the double yellow against Avenue, and Chippy obviously getting 2 yellows as well. These players are crucial for Guiseley, and there's not many teams probably apart from maybe Radcliffe and Macclesfield. You could even throw FC United in terms of numbers. Teams ain't got a lot of strength in depth. And on top of it, like I mentioned earlier, players have left. Brad Wade has left at the moment, personal reasons. Billy Conway's gone back to Gainsborough. But it's not all doom and gloom, because I watched the highlights against Marine earlier, and guys had chances. And I've listened to Phillips, and I thought it was absolutely spot on his analysis of the game. Take your chances. That is a completely different outcome to that game. I know they've conceded really early, which doesn't help you at all. But, Guiseley spurned, I'd say 2 or 3, and not half chances. They are good chances to take. There's Pratt, there's Denton as well, to score a couple. And they just need to hit the back of the net, because once you score that goal, sometimes, like I said earlier, when you're in times of adversity, you almost might squeeze an extra point or 2 out of nowhere just through togetherness and actual just sheer spirit alone. But when the ball's not hitting the back of the net, when you've got them really good chances, it's also quite easy to let your head drop. But I think Phillips will be probably encouraged by the chances that are being made. He'll obviously be very disappointed about the manner of the goals that are being conceded, and probably the amount of being conceded as well. But like I say, I think at the moment they've just got to somehow get together and just scrape these, those kind of victories that they got against Basford, whether it's 2-1, 1-0. They've just got to somehow get the points on the board, because before they know it, they'll be a third way through the season, and it could quite easily at the moment be in the bottom 6, bottom 7 of that division.
Yeah, final point really on that kind of their squad. I saw the tweet that I think Adam would have put out through the club account on Tuesday night. Obviously, when the name just 2 subs on the bench, and he did a nice little review, to be fair, of where everybody is. So obviously, Sam made his debut. Phil got his first start in that. Joe Stacey was on the bench but unfit, along with Hadji Dam, the goalkeeper. Gabriel Johnson, Meppen Waters, Liam Tong, and Lewis Whittam were all injured. Reece Kendall, Ollie Browne, and Callum Chippendale were all suspended. And Edwin Assel and David Bayo were both ineligible. So they really were down to bare bones. If they can get somebody's back, even if it's just 2 or 3, so they can at least fill the bench again for the game at Bamber Bridge. You've been to Bamber Bridge this season. By all accounts, not quite as formidable a side as they have been in previous seasons. But still, still a game that, apply themselves and they'll get the result. Fail to apply themselves, it could be another defeat.
Yeah, it's going to be a test for guys. There's no disputing that against Bamber Bridge, but I don't think Bamber Bridge are going to play a final come the end of the season. They've lost quite a number of players from that squad.
Yeah,
I watched them against Avenue, and probably Avenue did well to just probably hang on to a point, even despite playing against 10 men. But I wouldn't say that Bamber Bridge. I could be completely again wrong on this. I'll be surprised if they get in the playoffs. And like you said, guys, if you get the players back and people are match fit. Guys have arguably, like I said earlier, in some of the podcasts we've talked about, guys have probably got one of the strongest squads on paper. Yeah. It's having all them players, and sometimes you're going to have to deal with these scenarios and situations. It's how you come out of them situations, and the board and the club willing to back Phillips. We've known from last year the situation with Danny Ellis and Danny Forrest, who we didn't take a long time to decide to change Ellis out of Phillips. So again, as a neutral, you're looking at seeing what's the difference. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I understand Phillips has probably got a better track record, obviously managerial career, but at the moment the winning ratio compared to the games Phillips has managed, I could be well off a mount with, but I don't think it's looking pretty for him.
Again, I think I've seen one comment that was. And again, I don't take this as gospel because it was merely a comment on social media. I think somebody said it was just a handful of wins out of the last 21 games in all comps. Obviously, presumably not including the pre-season where they had a good spell. Let's move on from Guiseley. Let's go upper league then to Farsley, who have been steady away, really, in the National League North, our only National League North representative for the West Yorkshire Football Show. And obviously, we've talked 17 times about how many changes they made in terms of the playing staff, the new setup on the coaching staff, and got off to a far better start than I think a lot of people would have expected them to. It's a little bit of late. Most notably, they've lost to Chester and Blythe, and Saturday they travelled to Gloucester City.
Yeah, we mentioned it again, didn't we? Played a lot of the promoted teams and have, started off reasonably well. Probably arguably better than that, really well. They were almost top 7 or 8, and I know that's really early to call it in the league table, but for the likes of Farsley, you'd expect it to probably battle against relegation. If you're beating teams that might be in and around you at the end of the season, that's a big positive. I think this is where the test really comes to Farsley now. They're playing against teams who are probably a little bit more established in this division. Yeah. They started off really poorly against Chester, and I know Chester are not on the best run of form themselves after at the beginning of the season, and even so the other night when they looked to be cruising at 1-0 against Hereford and then concede 2 really late goals, albeit stunners, to lose to Hereford at home, which you wouldn't expect. And then watch the highlight against Blythe, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but I thought some of the goals for Blythe were definitely preventable. I thought defending was a bit poor, just letting crosses go in, and men on the shoulder just getting in a bit too easy, which will not please Clayton Donaldson and his coaching staff. So, conceding 6 goals in them 2 games, albeit they picked up that draw against Kings Lynn, sandwiched in between, which isn't a bad result. They're steady away, aren't they? But like I say, they're going to get the odd game like at Blythe where they're going to probably get beat 4-0. That was the same situation at Avenue last year. You sometimes just going to get them games. It's how, again, you deal with that situation. When you say you look at the games coming up, Gloucester, Banbury, Scarborough, Curzon, they're all teams that are pretty well established now. And maybe the likes of probably Banbury, Gloucester at the moment, you'd expect to be in and around them. Scarborough, Curzon, probably more so at the top end. I mean, you've got some really tough fixtures coming up after that of Brackley, Warrington, Alfreton. So that, you're looking further down, into October there. But I think from Farsley's perspective, you've just got to kind of realise that you've had a decent start to the season. There's no need to panic just yet. But like I say, if they go on a bit of a losing run, it will be interesting to see how they cope, because that is a brand new squad. It's probably still finding a way to gel with each other. And when you're on a little bit of a losing run, that's, again, for Clayton, who's a brand new manager in himself, is a real big test for him. Yeah,
the home games are going to be, you look at it and think that's, I mean, it's cliche as it is for all teams, really, but the home games in particular for Farsley are going to be the ones where they can use them really to keep themselves away from any form of trouble, really, because, as I say, in particular, look at the fact that it's Banbury at home. Obviously, they're at home against Scarborough in the Cup, but they then have Banbury at home in the league on the 23rd of September, followed by Scarborough away, and then Curzon and Brackley, again, both home games. We've seen what they can do at the Citadel in previous games.
Yeah, and I said this again, I don't think the league is as strong as what it used to be, and I stand by it. And there's a lot more unpredictability, I think, in this league than ever. This isn't the same league that years ago has had the likes of Halifax. It's had the likes of Salford, the likes of Fleetwood. God, I mean, how could we go on? Harrogate, Altrincham, all those teams who you were always expecting to be up there and were likely to probably win more than we're going to lose. Fylde you can throw in there as well recently. You only have to look at Scarborough. Scarborough recruited, probably for me, one of the best in National League North, being steady away without really setting the league on fire. And then they go and lose to Southport, who are rooted at the bottom, just got Jim Bentley as manager and lose 3-0. So it is a cliche, but anybody can beat anybody. But I think even more so in the National League North in a lot of other years, which is a positive for Farsley, because in previous years, Farsley have been probably been that team where people have either played them and gone, we probably should be beating, with the greatest respect, the likes of Farsley. But now Farsley are probably more established. Got a really good coaching staff there. They seem to have got the right setup going for the last few years as well. And seem to be just steadily along, which is kind of what you need in that league. I think if you get, I think 42, 45 points, you're safe. in that league. And I think they're more than capable of that. The good start is going to really help them. They've got something to fall back and there's a bit of a cushion. But like I said, the real test and the ones that they would be hoping to get something out of, like you said, is definitely the games at home. But like I say, even again, we mentioned it in years gone by, it's not been the best surface to play football, but it looks completely different this year. So, teams are going to be going there and playing completely different and from what they might be expecting. So it's swings and roundabouts, really, I think, with that one.
That is the key thing. I was going to mention that. Obviously, they're not having to be as direct on the face of it compared to previous years, because the pitch certainly seems to be on the face of it a downside better than it has been for a number of years, and that's make a big difference both to themselves and to the opposition coming to the Arsenal Nest, the Citadel rather.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's been a sign of recruitment Clayton and the likes of Danny and Pav and Tom have made as well. It's quite clear they've gone for a lot of young, fresh legs who are very pacey, very quick, able to get in around the lines. And also had a little bit of physicality to back, because you're always going to need that at our level. Still recruited Tom Allen. Connor Branson's gone in there as well. Ryan Watson's experienced enough that he's kind of dipping in and out, starting 11 off the bench as well. So they've got, a decent mix there. I think the interesting thing is, I know obviously the keeper from Everton on loan has gone on international duty. I know they've had to recruit the lad from Huddersfield on loan, but once he's gone into national duty, get beat 4-0. And like I mentioned a few weeks back, you've got to keep your best players on the pitch somehow. I know you can't prevent the kid from going to national duty, but how can you last without a lone keeper for?
It's very rare, isn't it, that's ever usually an issue for the sides at our level to have players going out on international duty. Obviously, for Zander Laban would be on loan from Everton, he's already in that profile spot for his national team.
Yeah, and he's already shown form this year. That he's probably one of the best keepers in that division. And I think from Faz's perspective, when you've got a really good, solid number one, to kind of just get you out a little bit of trouble if you need it, it really does help. And like I say, they've got a decent spine there at Faz. I'm really interested to go and watch them this year, because I think they'll offer something completely different from what we've seen in previous years. Russ Wilcox worked near miracles to keep them up, and did an amazing job. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him back in management soon. You only have to look at the likes of, I'm not saying he's going to go because I don't know any inside information, but look at Darlington. Just got rid of Alan Armstrong. Somebody like Russ Wilcox would probably be perfect for him in a moment. He's worked in tight budgets before. He's kept teams up. You look at Darlington's starting 11. It's arguably one of the strongest in the division. They are in the catchment area where they're going to struggle to out budget the likes of South Seals, Hartlepool. That's easy for me to say. Even the likes of Spennymoor until recent times as well. So, and they're probably competing against the likes of Blythe. So, somebody like a Wilcox has done really well at Farsley, and you can see there's almost that steady line of progression that's happening down at Citadel, and it'd be great to see them stay in that division and just keep on doing what they're doing, because in no amount of time you could see them easily just be quite steady mid-table, even pushing for playoffs.
Absolutely. Let's turn our attentions then down the leagues and to the sides in the Northern Counties East before we look at the sides of Northern Premiers, because they're all in FA Trophy action this weekend. And for the Northern Counties East side, look, we talked about this before. I think it was 9 or 10 sides in our region in those divisions alone. And Campion obviously going very well, currently occupying second. Penistone going well, occupying third. Frickley in fifth. Stilston 7th, and then Albion Sports 9th. Thackley 11th. Emily 12th. Gonker 13th. Eccleshill 14th, Garforth 15th. There is a whole cluster in mid-table, but kind of just keeping themselves away from that crucial, the bottom spot, just one that goes down in the Northern Counties East this season. But in particular, the sides in and around the top, the fact that Campion, Penistone, Frickley are making up playoff places. Stilton have found a little bit of form as well of late after their slightly poor start to be kind of just outside. So the sides knocking on the door there, but Nesborough, just outside our region over in the North Yorkshire county, are the side that are still flying the flag top of the league.
Yeah, they've got Emily on Friday night, which I think will be a really good fixture, and that'll be a real test at Emily. Yeah, so I mean, if you are around that local area, I think that'll be one to for people to go and watch. So I think probably we've mentioned that early in the season. There's a surprises, but you'd expect Emily to be up there, and I think Emily just need to get a few wins on the board. But I think what really stands out for me at the moment in this division is there's just so much difference between the amount of games teams have played. You know, you're ranging from 7, the likes of Hallam and Silsden, to Albion Sports, who've played 3. You know, they've got 4 games to catch up, and Albion at the moment have won 3 out of 3, sit 9th. But probably if you take that form into the rest of the games, we're sitting top of the table. It's mad. So I think, you know, and that'll all even probably just become even more extended with the, you know, the competitions of FA Cup and FA Trophy, like we mentioned earlier. So I think I went to watch Campion last night. You know, they cancelled out each other against Tadcaster. You know, I think many people were expecting a real tasty affair. Obviously, the connection between Campion and Railway from last season. You know, I was quite surprised of how the game set up. Really, Taddy just liked to kind of just be really patient at possession, and then all of a sudden, at the click of a finger, you know, kind of hit the long ball over the top. Ollie Norman, who looks a player and a half. I know if anybody's watching this, he's been around the local area for a while with Bradford City and Leeds as well. He looks a real decent prospect, but you know they couldn't really break Campion down. We had a couple of chances if the forwards were kind of really in the box, but never really got on the end of it. And Campion were quite happy to let Taddy play, which I was really surprised about. I thought we could have pressed them quite higher up and forced a few errors, and especially the way Campion play, they're quite direct and aggressive in your face. But it was that old football cliche. It was a real game of chess, and nobody won. They just both drew blanks completely. And it's just one of those. Sometimes you get games like that, but I think Campion might be slightly disappointed that they've not made advantage of Knaresborough losing at Eccleshill, which was a surprise. So yeah, there's teams in our region doing okay. There's some teams doing well. But I think, like I said, that cluster of teams in mid-table will be looking to just get on a little bit of form, the likes of what Silsden have done recently. We started poorly, but have gathered a little bit of momentum now.
Yeah, and you look at the weekend's fixtures for the sides of the Northern Counties East Prem. For those that are in action, Eccleshill are at home to Thackley, so there's a little Bradford derby there. Another derby for West Yorkshire between Penistone Church and Albion Sports. Silsden are at home to Pickering Town, and then Tadcaster Albion, they face Galkey United. So there's certainly some tasty-looking games, actually, this Saturday. And there are in midweek as well, which we'll come to in a second. But just want to touch on the league below as well, NCL Division 1. Wakefield found a little bit of form and up into those playoff places at the moment.
Yeah, another team, you know, you kind of draw parallels with Silsden a little bit. With Wakefield started the season quite surprisingly not as well as probably what they hoped it would be. You know, losing against the likes of Beverley. Unfortunately, getting knocked out of the FA Vars against Droylsden. But recently, they've picked up a little bit of form and scored, you know, quite a number of goals. I think, 3 against Railway, just looking here, 3 against Railway, 7 against Yorkshire Amateur. Obviously, we know the situation at Yorkshire Amateur recently. And then 4 against Armthorpe. So, what's that, 14 goals in 3 league games, which is a really good return. Ash Flynn getting on the score sheet a lot more. Billy Mole as well, scoring 4 goals in 2 games. So they're doing well, but you know they've got a bit of competition this year because I think there's some teams the likes of Onewell and especially Parkgate who've started really well. Parkgate level on points with Runwell, game in hand, and I remember Lee Ashford when he joined us on the West Yorkshire Football Show, he picked them out as a really good team. So Wakefield, I think many people are expecting him to kind of walk the league. They're probably not going to walk the league, but they've just picked up form when they really need to before there were a little bit of question marks aimed there at Bellevue.
Just outside of Wakefield is Nostell, and Nostell Miners Welfare currently occupying the place behind Wakey 4th, Nostell 5th.
Yeah, and again, they're another team who it's entertaining games to watch. Unfortunately, lost 6-3 against Retford, but then previous to that, beat Clay Cross Town 3-1. So Nostell have just scored so many goals; it is unbelievable. And the goal difference is only +9, which I say is only +9, which is a positive. But they're scoring 1 week 6, conceding 3, conceding 6, scoring 3. It is kind of really old school football, which I'm guessing if you're a Nostell fan or going to watch Nostell at some point, must be really entertaining. So we need to get down there quick before the goals run out.
Before the goals dry up. Just going to touch on Damien's comment. Keep the good work, lads. Great flagship for non-league for West Yorkshire. Steps 2 to 6 years. Your comment, Damien.
Thank you.
Carrying on, look, Yorkshire Amateur. We've talked before about the issues that they've got there. Of course, they were thumped 7-0 by Wakefield as well. Not too long since, but you know they're kind of. off the mark with the wins at least, which last time I think we recorded, they hadn't picked that up at that point.
Yeah, and I think this is where we get with a lot of teams, don't we? Beginning of the season is always a really tricky one to gauge. You've got you want to start the season well. There's no doubt about that. Is it the end of the world when you don't start well? Probably not. But there's a few more question marks than you may have had at the beginning of the season. But probably I'd say probably 60-70% of teams going into the season will be relatively comfortable with where they are, but probably not many teams would expect to walk away with leagues. But it's all about gelling together, finding them rhythms, finding them patterns, and also we know that, especially non-league, the fixture list is so overloaded at the beginning of the season when teams are playing Saturday, Tuesday, sometimes Friday, Tuesday. It's crazy. It still baffles me how that fixture list sometimes is thrown up. I don't understand why we don't extend it out, because I think that, when we're looking at teams now, and we're talking about the likes of guys who probably making their own worst enemy for themselves sometimes, but there's players getting injuries, and these players are not full time. They have day jobs. Some of these are working Monday to Friday, and then they're going to play football for the team at night. And to have a fixture list of so many games, sometimes you're playing 9 games in about 3 weeks, which is just 3-4 weeks, which is it's just mad. I never understand it. I understand the aspect that sometimes games might get postponed later on in the calendar, but I think a lot of clubs would like to see this just extended out a little bit further, because when it comes to this time of, you could even throw it into now October, November, where you can have midweek games. You don't need to have it so early on in the season. But yeah, I think once you get on a run, get the first win, it's a little bit of pressure off, a little bit of relief, and then you can kick on for the rest of the season, which you've mentioned. So, hopefully, you'd argue now there's probably a lot of teams, even though you can talk about Albion Sports who've played 3 games, but they've played in FA competitions. Teams will probably know roughly where they probably are. In terms of their fitness, in terms of the squad. Do you think we need to add more? Obviously, we're not affected by the transfer deadline. And they'll probably be as settled as they possibly can be at this point. They're probably running on about 80-85%. It's now how do they deal with the scenarios that are throwing up, like the injuries, like the suspensions. We're talking about the weather. It's 27-28 degrees at the moment, which is balmy for us, isn't it? But you're not going to get postponements. It's how you deal with postponements come December time, January time, when the tough does get going. Those have another chapter for clubs to really to work and battle through, really. But yeah. I think clubs just need a little bit of a breathe at the beginning of the season. And I know there's a lot of arguments like that at top level, but I think the argument stands probably a little bit more so at our level, really, in non-league.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Yeah. It's a little bit mad. It always baffles me when you hear Jurgen Klopp and the Premier League managers, in particular, talking about the fixture congestion, and they're thinking, well, you're full-time footballers. You're literally just paid to do that. They've got all the sports rehabilitation and physiotherapy facilities they could possibly need to recover. There's no wheelie bins full of ice water there, is there? Let's be honest. The congestion.
We're lucky if we've got a wheelie bin, to be fair, but yeah, that's on a different. Yeah.
Final couple of slides in the NEC in Northern Counties East League Division 1. It's easier for me to say that than it is to try and use the letters. Glasshouse and Welfare currently 15th, and Horbury Town just above that bottom 3, occupying 19th. Steady but unspectacular starts for both sides so far.
Yeah, Horbury probably not starting the season as well as what they did last season. They're the ones that were pushing Campion a little bit close, but recent results have kind of not really gone in their favour. Picks up a credible draw against Beverley, 0-0, considering the way Beverley have started, so hopefully that's just a turn of form. But yeah, I think at the moment when you're looking through how they've done, losing to likes of Nostell, we mentioned earlier, by 6. Drew against Retford, which isn't a bad result, but then losing 4-3 against Staveley in the last minute, that must have really hurt before that 0-0 draw. So they've just got to somehow, again, another team we talk about, just got to navigate through a little bit of those tests and scenarios. If you're losing in the last minute, it's a real killer. It is for any team, regardless of what level you're playing at. To lose in the last minute like that must be really disheartening. So to back that up with a really good draw against Beverley is decent. And I think, obviously in other situations at Yorkshire Amateur, there's a bit of a change there. Hopefully that will pick up, at Yorkshire Amateur at the moment recently. They've conceded a lot of goals, but I think the win against Aversley was a big plus for them. Now they've had a change in management there. Probably not expected to get much out of Wakefield really, but then suffered a quite heavy defeat against Johnfield, who were only 16th. So, for the likes of Yorkshire Amateur and Anthorp, they've had difficulties at the beginning of this season, and it's probably just purely on survival at the moment for them teams, which is understandable. But the situation at Yorkshire Amateurs, it's kind of hopefully got themselves sorted, and it's not too late in the day to kind of get out. I mean, yeah, they've played 9 games more than any other team in that division, which isn't the greatest, but I'd always say this. I'd much rather have them points on the board than games in hand, because that's what counts. There's teams in around them could catch up to Yorkshire Amateur and not get a point out of them. So yeah, hopefully them 2 teams pull it around and they have a steady season, because likes of Yorkshire Amateur and Anthorp, to be fair as well, have got a really good reputation about themselves in our local area, and I know there's a few people go watch them themselves, and wish them all the best to get out of the difficulties.
So our attention's then to the North West Counties League, and obviously there's a handful of sides from our region that are in those divisions. In the Premier League, Barwick Town sitting steady away 13th at the moment in a league that I think most surprisingly isn't being dominated by Bury. Bury currently second behind Kendal Town, actually, in that in the North West Counties Premier. In fact, Bury are 5 points behind that. But for Barwick, who, as I say, some folks still think it's Lancashire and some folks claim it's Yorkshire. We'll stick it in ours just to be on the safe side. Steady away at the moment, 13th in the league, and there are sides that are capable of pulling out some surprise results, to be fair, both in both good ways and bad ways sometimes.
Yeah, it's probably a fair reflection of where they might end up at the end of the season. Played FC United last Saturday in the FA Cup, only lost 1-0. And I was actually watching the interview from Reynolds at FC United, and he praised them. He said, despite it can be a risk, and he was absolutely spot on with this. It is a risk for any team to go away from home and set up 4-5-1. If you concede in the opening 5 minutes, your game plan goes out the window. But Barwick stuck to it and kept FC United out for a long time, to be fair, and they were probably close to not pushing for a replay. Seen a couple of clips as well, and they were probably unfortunate not to even snatch an equaliser as well. And there were a good set of Sewer fans there as well, which was great to see. Yeah, I mean, it's a good experience for them. They just seem to be steady away, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Like I say, there's teams in there who are probably going to dominate that division. I don't think many people, if anybody, expected Barwick to be up there. I think even the most hardened Barwick fan would have expected to challenge like Bury and Kendal, but it makes the league a little bit more interesting, with consideration that everybody thought Bury were going to run away with it. But like I say, Kendal have done really well at the moment.
Yeah, very much so. And dropping down into First Division North, of course, we've got 3 or 4 sides from our region. They're currently looking at the league table. Ilkley Town occupying 4th, Route 1 Rovers occupying 6th, Steeton in 7th, and Shelley down in 16th for now. But Shelley did get a win over Steeton not too long since. I think it was just the other week.
Yeah, on the weekend, 3-2 for Shelley, which was a really good result. Probably surprised quite a few in this league.
Yeah.
But I think that's, it's a really credible result against a team that, on the day we've seen them quite a few times already, are very important in their attack. But again, I think from Steeton's perspective, they're conceding a few too many goals. They won't want to finish at all 7th. They want to be pushing for them playoffs the way Ilkley have gotten a winning run of form before they lost at the weekend. They've catapulted themselves into 4th. And unfortunately, like I say, Route 1 Rovers have suffered 3 defeats recently as well, which is another, like I mentioned earlier, another good scenario for them to just kind of manage through. They were there last night at Campion. We do go and watch all the local games, which I think is amazing. And they've clearly got a really close eye on what's happening around the region, even despite them being in Northwest counties. And that's where they do have to keep their eye on, because they are in a completely different market of who they're shopping for and who they can recruit. And they've recruited 3 players only last week, which does bolster the ranks, which is great news for the lads there. But yeah, I think it's tight, albeit Shelley, kind of first from bottom at the moment, but like Ilkley, Route 1 and Steeton, I think on the face of things will be reasonably content with where they are. That campaign is well and truly underway now. We are nearly a third into that campaign, 10, 11, 12 games between a lot of teams, and it's probably starting to settle down a little bit. So yeah, I think Steeton will just want a bit of consistency. Ilkley just want to get back on winning form as well as Route 1.
I mean, you touched on Steeton conceding a few too many goals of late. I think that's certainly fair to say where Shelley's issue is at the moment. When you look at the fact they've conceded 32 goals in their 11 games so far. Not the worst, though. That's Nelson, who conceded 33, who currently sit bottom. And I'll be honest, that's slightly surprising as well, that Nelson having such a struggle, obviously, over the Lancashire border. That kind of wraps up the Northern Counties, East and West for us. So we'll turn our attentions then to this weekend, and in particular the FA Trophy that gets underway for the sides that are in the Northern Premier League East, which is, I think, the only league we haven't covered. The sides that are in there, North Ferriby are hosting Ossett United. Pontefract Collieries are travelling to Stockton Town. Liversedge host Nantwich, and Brighouse host Hebburn. So there is some pretty tasty-looking ties there in particular. Probably the one that stands out for me with the Liversedge versus Nantwich game, purely because I saw Nantwich a couple of weeks ago, and they lost to Clitheroe in the NPL West. But Liversedge aside, that obviously we've talked umpteen times about the whole Ross McCormack thing, but actually, that aside, seems to be turning a little bit of a corner after obviously a really disappointing campaign last year.
Yeah, and I think what was needed, which is what they've done. They've got a couple of loans in. Marley Blair and Isaac Asensio have come into the squad as well. You know, they've good experienced players at this level, which I think were probably needed because they've recruited quite a young core. The majority of being the young players, even despite having quite experienced off the pitch. I think you're right. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure if you've been on the phone to Ross yet to tell him a scouting report of what Nantwich were like. I'm sure he'd appreciate that. But yeah, it's probably one that you said just need to have a bit of a run in a cup, which would be really good. And people use the phrase of cup competitions can be a distraction. I think it's rubbish. I do. I think sometimes winning breeds confidence, and yeah, it can either hinder you or it can do the world of good for your team. And I think somebody like said you were on a just picking up a little bit with a few odd results here and there, it'll really do them well. But again, it depends on the loan issues of being allowed to play in the game, which will be really interesting to see. I think also one that stands out for me is Ponty picked up 3 wins recently. We talked about beginning of the season, got a really strong squad, looked really impressive, and are backing it up at the moment. And it's not an easy place to go. We always know that the North East is never easy to go. But I think from Ponty's perspective, they won't want to repeat of going up to Concert where the pitch was flooded and get home at 10:30, finish a game at 10:30 and don't get home until the following day. But I think Ponty will be looking for that victory against Stockton to progress in the FA Trophy, because I think they're capable of doing it. And when you're in a good run of form, don't matter if you're playing League or Cup, next game comes along and you've just got a bit of momentum. So I fancy Ponty to do well. From Ossett's perspective, it's a real tough tie against North Ferriby. I think there's going to be, like I say, ups and downs with Ossett. At the moment, we've just dipped a little bit. If we get a draw out of, I can't remember if it goes to a replay. I think we might have to finish it on the day. But it's a real tricky situation to go into North Ferriby, and it's probably one where you get the odd surprise here and there. I think that might be the one, if you're going to look across the whole calendar, that would be a surprise for Ossett to win. But going to North Ferriby with the class that they've got, of likes of Danny East, Tom Corner there, and Balder in charge, that's a real tough ask for the lads from Ingfield.
Yeah, because you look at the way that the league table is shaping up. Obviously, Pontefract currently in 8th, Brighouse in 9th, Liversedge 13th, as you say, Ossett, who've had a bit of a poor start of the season, second, bottom currently 19th. I mean, I think it says a lot, though, just touching on Liversedge for a second, that the fact that, yes, they've started slowly, but their win was against the side that are currently top, with 5 wins from 6 games in Hebburn, who are the opponents for Brighouse in the Cup, in the trophy, on Saturday. So Brighouse, they'll certainly be glad they're at home for that one.
Yeah, we mentioned it with Dave, didn't we, the other week as well. Very entertaining team to watch. A big turnover of players. But, Hebburn have always, historically, I think Hebburn have been to Wembley even the FA Vars as well before they've got promoted. So they've got a good history in the cup competitions. And we've said it just recently as well. The teams up in the North East are probably sometimes maybe a league stronger than probably what they might usually be. It's just because of geographics of where they've been, and now obviously they've now moved into that east since the league's been split up a bit. It's probably balanced things out a tiny bit, but it's never easy to go up to the North East and play. It is an absolute football mad region, no doubt about it. And Brighouse will be going To like I said, at home to Hebburn, they'll be looking to just get something out of that, because despite being top of the league, Brighouse is strong at home. But you look at, and we talked about Sedge, who've recruited Jack Dyce, former Guiseley, gone back to Sedge as well. Alex Wharton used to be at York. Jack Stockdale's been around as well, from Ossett and other days at Bradford City, I believe, and Harrogate, and he's gone to Sedge. Kurt Harris, for me, really good player, really strong centre-back. I'm surprised he's not got to move higher up. And Dan Hartley as well, which we all know is from his days at, I believe, at Brighouse as well. So they've got a spine now, which seems to be really good. I think the lad that they had on loan at from Guiseley, I believe, has gone back. Lawrence for striker, but apparently he might have had an ankle injury, so it'll be interesting to see how he fits back into Guiseley with the numbers that they've got. But if it seemed to be like Remington and McCormack just seemed to have just steadied the ship a little bit, which was needed because the whole PR, the whole media circus around Liversidge is always bound to happen with Ross McCormack going there. But ultimately, it's results on the pitch that count. You can have all the best names behind the scenes. It's about what they can do on the pitch. And let's be honest, I don't think we've seen Ross play yet. So it's all about when he gets up to fitness, what can he do in this level?
Yeah, certainly going to be very interesting to see, as I say, in due course, when that does come around. That probably brings us nicely to a close, really. We can certainly hope that, with having no sides against each other in the FA Trophy, that there's some progression for the sides in the trophy. There's just the one really that remains, and that's for us to go back from the bottom in the trophy in the Northern Counties East League to the very top and to FC Halifax Town. And for them, I mean, I was there obviously at the Cromwell Arena today, and to be fair, Halifax did a job on Rochdale.
I'll flip it back to you, Chris. Go and give your account. You saw it better than me. So, I mean, what your thoughts? Obviously, Rochdale have started the season really well, considering some early pre-season predictions. But a 1-0 victory at Rochdale's a very decent result, isn't it, for the Sherman?
Yeah, I think Halifax was certainly different to most of the other sides actually that have come to Scotland this season so far. The likes of Ebbsfleet and Eastleigh and Bromley as well, for the most part, stood off. And when Dale are given time on the ball and more importantly, given space going forward, they can usually make it work out quite well. Credit to Halifax, they absolutely did a job on Rochdale. They were in the faces from minute one, and Rochdale just couldn't get their game going because of Halifax's pressing. And yeah, Chris Millington got his tactics absolutely spot on.
Interesting. And a good run of form out at the moment, unbeaten in 5. Harker get on the score sheet again. Again, throwing his name in there. Dave mentioned him right at the beginning of the season. Yeah. He will score goals, and he's poached another one. I need to get to a big victory. And yeah, it's going to be. I think it's a really good start for Halifax, I'll be honest. And I didn't expect him to start as well as what they have done. And even arguably, despite that, they could have probably won maybe 1 or 2 more, despite where they are in the table.
Yeah, I was about to say, thinking back to that season preview we did when we were all on, and I certainly didn't expect Chris Millington to have the start that they have. I thought, looking at the fixtures, that they'd struggle for those first 3 games in particular, but they've absolutely hit the ground running, and I'll say fair play to them. They've deserve to be where they are currently in the league table, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really good test on Saturday dinner time. And they've got Southend at home, which is going to be a really good test. Obviously, we know at the moment Southend bottom of the table because of the situation at the moment, but they've started the season quite well on the pitch, so don't be fooled by that last place at the moment. I think that's going to be a really good one. But again, Halifax have been well known to play well against the teams who were expected to be up there and maybe not do so well against the teams that might be down towards the bottom. So Halifax at the moment, 5 unbeaten, you've got nothing to worry about, have you? Nothing to fear. Why wouldn't they go beat Southend at the weekend? And I think if they do that, that will be...
that's throwing a market down, isn't it? If they get that. I think the other thing to mention with that one, a very last-minute change of kickoff time with that one, of course. Originally scheduled for 3 o'clock, but somebody kind of seems to forget to tell the National League that, by the way, they've got rugby on the same evening, hence why it has now been brought forward to the lunchtime kickoff. So just in case there's any shaman that's kind of somehow managed to elude them, it is a lunchtime kickoff for your game against Southend on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a great double header. If you're a Halifax Town fan and a Panthers fan, you'd love it, aren't you? Through that day in the sunshine, Halifax, go and watch the football. nip out for a bit of lunch and then come back for the afternoon. It's great. That's exactly what it should be if you're a sports fan. If you can do that on Saturday, you're laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, as you say, with the weather forecast for Saturday, why would you not go and do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Lewis, I think that probably, as I say, brings us then to a nice close. There's plenty of football going on this midweek. It has to be said, especially across like the Northern Counties East League and the Northwest Counties League. I'm sure we'll try and get to some games Tuesday night. As I say, Golker are at home, Silverstone are at home, Thackley are at home, all on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Albion Sports are at home. And I can't get to me tab quickly enough to check the Northwest Counties League, but I'm fairly sure that some of the sides in our region and the western side of the league structure will be at home as well. So there's certainly a lot to go at for the non-league scene for this coming midweek.
Yep, great weather. Go and support your local teams. We say it every time, but we absolutely need it. And I might have been disappointed last night, but it's very rare. You'll see a game that'll be cancelling each other out. Like we said, plenty of goals, plenty of action, plenty of talking points. And it'd be great to see a lot of you there. And if you are, come and say hello, come and chat with us. It'd be great to see you all, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to see what I can do, I think, to try and get to Emily versus Knaresborough. So that's tomorrow night, Friday night football, under the lights over at Emily. So I'm going to try and get to that one, I think, if I can tomorrow night, because I'm unavailable for football on Saturday. So that's my way of getting me football fixed this weekend.
Good lad.
Excellent. Cheers, Lewis, for joining us. As always, get in touch with us here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. We are on Twitter, on X as it's called now. Cheers, Elon. We're also on Facebook, and do give us a like and subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. And I think we're also on Twitch as well. We've been streaming via that. Yeah, I think that's one for the cool kids that I'm absolutely not aware of, to be honest.
I've not got a clue. I'm just happy I'm sat at Fantasy League team table. Yeah, just saying.
Yes, there is
just saying,
a fantasy football league as well for those that do play the Premier League fantasy football. I mean, that was just a bit of a combination of bragging, but also promoting the fact that we have.
Nice, wasn't it? Smooth. It's like we've done this before.
Yeah. So the details for that, though, are in a pinned tweet at the top of our Twitter page. You can find the code on there if you want to join our league. It doesn't matter that we are a few games into the season already. It'll just add you in with the points you've got so far, and we'll see where you are. Excellent, Lewis. Thanks for joining us, mate. We'll be back next week, I'm sure, with a non-league roundup. I'm sure Steve and Jason and Steve Downs and the rest of the lads with the EFL angles will be back before then as well here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Thanks for joining us this evening. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.